The limestone finish can be used with any of our systems. It's basically put over the top of a cementitious base coat. When you open the bucket, we've already pre-mixed it just to keep the noise down. But it's a 2-coat application. I'll repeat, it's a 2-coat application. If you think in terms of freestyle, that we've actually in some cases troweled smooth in the past. Limestone has even got a smaller or finer aggregate with more aggregate in it. You'll feel like it's really stiff, even though it's the right viscosity. When you trowel the first coat, you burn it on as tight as you can get it. So there's one of two ways to do it. You can put the first coat on one day and come back and put the second coat on the next day. And for anyone that hasn't utilized it, that's typically the best approach. But ultimately, just as Al is showing you, again, you just burn a tight coat on, one after the other. If you want to put it on during the same work period, you trowel it on the first coat identically to what Al is doing right now. And then when you can't disturb it under thumb pressure, about 30 minutes, then you put your second coat on and lay that trowel flat and pull it really tight. You don't float it. You rub it open, and it'll give you the exact limestone texture. 9 times out of 10, when people are having trouble with limestone, they're trying to float it and trying to overwork it. Again, it's built into it, guys, to make it really simple from an application standpoint. Trowel it on tight, and then just rub it open. So you hear that noise, the trowel noise? A lot of times I'll get a call and a guy will say, oh, I'm having trouble with limestone. I can hear it, trowel some on. I can hear in the background, just like you heard Al's trowel. You can hear it. You're burning it on. They'll put it on so loose that you can't do anything with it. So you just basically open it up. But I really like for a guy to start out with just running 2 coats. 1 coat one day, 1 coat the next. Can you use a primer with it? You can. Don't have to. Generally, I like the suction so it takes up quicker and you can move along a little bit quicker. Okay? Any color, just like any of the other finishes. And it seems to be growing in popularity. People like that limestone appearance. So again, when you're trowel applying 2 coats, the published coverage is based upon 2 coats. Recognize you got a little bit more labor in it than you do the standard finish, right? So you're going to have to bid a little bit more for that. Yes? That's the second coat. First coat that you already see on the wall surface. He's actually, when you're going through and you're rubbing it, you're just rubbing the texture open. When you say float it out, just float it like you would, just like a regular sandblast or quartz. What you'll see is swirls in it. You'll see when after he opens it up, he'll clean off his float like he's doing right now and just lay it down. Steel trowel will do this.
Burn it with a trowel.
What will happen?
I'll do this. The first coat.
Where's the other trowel at? What it'll do? It'll leave a burnish right on the surface. Okay? If you don't burnish it, you can use a stainless steel trowel, but what happens is it starts to dry, then it'll start to drag and you can't get it to lay down. No. You're saying what kind of a trowel now? It still wouldn't matter. What will actually happen is when you push on the shank, it basically is going to actually rub that on the surface. So the key is you want to use, if you're going to use a float, even though you're not floating, use a plastic float. Now, if you use this, you can, but you can't be rubbing on it. Because you'll see, just like it's burnished up there, a lot of times you want to burnish it. But what you'll have is you'll have dark discoloration, you'll have some light and some of those things. Generally just an NKJ, the white blade with a red handle, or just like the float that Al's got, something really soft. And the reason why is when you have wall imperfections, if you really have to rub to get it to move the texture, then that's when you get into problems. The softer floats will get in there and actually move the aggregate to develop that limestone texture. Sure.
And I've done a lot of limestone finish.
Sure.
I often use the 1.0 behind it, and then I put the limestone finish over it.
You could do some of those things. Once you get into just recognizing the fundamentals of the product, there's a lot of advanced things that you can get into, and that's a prime example of that. Sometimes we'll use sand pebble, let it dry, and then come back with freestyle and do the exact same thing. There's some really neat things, and then I'll show you with the Tuscan glaze. The one thing that you want to try to get away from, and I know it's difficult to see back there, but if you can see the burnish, can everybody see the burnish? What happens if you've got 4 or 5 guys manipulating the limestone, and one guy burnishes it? Now you've got something in the middle of the wall that shows up like a sore thumb. So you want to try to keep it as easy and simple as possible. You know, if it's just a couple guys, not a big deal. But you got somebody new and he's trying to work it and doesn't understand that. The limestone's a little bit more challenging, but the key is, the very key thing that you want to do with limestone is burn it on tight. Use that aggregate, cover the surface, and then work it open, and then it's just going to be a lighter touch over the top of that. Okay? Any questions about the limestone? 2 coats. Published coverage is based upon 2 coats. And so if you haven't used it, the easiest way to find out how to use it, run 1 coat, and then run the 2nd coat the next day. After you kind of get the hang of it, run your 1st coat, and when you can't disturb it under thumb pressure, run your 2nd coat, and you can do it in the same work period. Whichever you start for that job, do it the exact same way all the way through. Don't use a combination of both. The other thing that I want you to think about, let's say if we have scaffold 3 frames high and we're going to run a wall. First thing I would ask you, do you see limestone, a piece of limestone wall that's 3 stories? No. Limestone is broken up into panels. 3 by 5, 4 by 8, 2 by 8. Okay, it needs to be broken up as in limestone. Just think if we go through and we leave that joint and come back and try to tie back into that from scaffold to scaffold, you're going to read it. So it should be broken up in a limestone pattern. And that's something that we need to make sure we communicate to the design professionals. So if you see a project that's specified with limestone and it's not broken up in manageable panels, then that's a conversation that needs to take place with the design professional before you move forward. Okay?